They used to say the house at Oke-Ayo Road never heard wedding songs. Not because there were no daughters in the house. There were two. Not because there were no men bold enough to knock on that gate. Men came, even when neighbors warned them. Not because Mama Adeyemi didn't pray. She prayed until her knees felt older than her face. But because Kemisola, the first daughter, had spoken an oath one afternoon, and the words fell into the compound like a stone into a well. "No one will marry in this family before me," she said the day she turned 30. "Not under my roof. Not in my lifetime." She didn't say it playfully. She didn't say it like a joke. She said it like a verdict. Mama laughed at first, fanning herself with a newspaper. "Ha! This one and her mouth," she said. "So is marriage now something you can control?" Even Baba chuckled from his chair, pretending he didn't take it seriously. But 2 years later, nobody laughed when Kemisola entered a room. 2 years later, even the wind in that compound seemed to listen for her footsteps before it dared to blow. Kemisola Adeyemi had always carried herself like someone who belonged in places other people needed permission to enter. She was tall, with a kind of beauty that didn't beg. Her eyes didn't wander when she spoke. They fixed on you like you owed her attention. She dressed like she was always on her way to an office nobody else could access. Clean blazers, pressed skirts, heels that clicked with authority. In the family, she wasn't just the first daughter. She was the standard. When Kemisola got her first job after NYSC, people praised God as if she had become a miracle overnight. When she bought her first car, an old, slightly dented Corolla she washed every weekend, neighbor said, "See the first daughter. Responsible." But there was one thing she didn't have. A husband. At 25, it had been a harmless joke. At 28, it became a question. At 30, it became a prayer point people included in their fasting. At 32, it became silence. And silence is not empty. Silence is heavy. It sits on your shoulders. It makes you hear things you didn't notice before, like how a woman's worth is measured in rings and wedding pictures, and how quickly aunties shift from "you're still young" to "don't be picky" to "is everything okay with you?" Kemisola heard it all. At weddings, she danced with tight smiles and sprayed money like a professional. She clapped at engagement announcements, even when her stomach clenched. She hugged brides, kissed foreheads, told them, "I'm happy for you," and meant it the way a thirsty person means the water looks good. Then she returned home, removed her makeup, sat on her bed, and stared at the ceiling like a person waiting for news that never came. Every year that passed hardened something inside her. She hid it behind sarcasm, behind prayer meetings, behind "I'm focusing on my career," behind "God's time is the best." But deep down, she was afraid. Afraid of becoming the woman people pitied. Afraid of being called the leftover daughter. Afraid that time would move on without her, and she'd be stuck waving from the roadside like an abandoned passenger. Damilola was the opposite. Where Kemisola's presence tightened the air, Dami's presence softened it. She laughed easily. She sang while sweeping the compound. She greeted neighbors like she actually enjoyed seeing them. She spoke with warmth, not precision. Her voice carried light, the kind that made even gloomy mornings feel less stubborn. Men noticed her without her trying. The first time a neighbor said, "This your younger one has grace," Kemisola was standing in the doorway, holding a cup of tea. She didn't react. She didn't flinch. But the tea cooled in her hand before she took a sip. Suitors started coming when Dami turned 22. At first, Mama was excited in the way mothers get excited when they see their children approaching milestones. She rearranged chairs, bought biscuits, cleaned the compound like the governor was coming. The first suitor was Kunle, a civil engineer. He arrived on a Saturday afternoon with an uncle and a small bag of gifts, cola nuts, wine, and a neatly wrapped box that smelled like expensive perfume. He greeted Baba properly, knelt slightly for Mama, and spoke with confidence that didn't feel arrogant. Dami sat quietly, cheeks warm, eyes bright. Mama's smile was so wide it looked painful. "Ah, my daughter," Mama whispered later in the kitchen, stirring soup too aggressively. "God has started." That evening, Kemisola called Kunle aside. No one heard what she said. Not Mama, not Dami, not even Baba, who was pretending to watch football while half listening. But the next morning, Kunle left without greeting anyone. "No, thank you." "No, I'll call." "No, please greet your family." By evening, his number stopped going through. Mama called his uncle. It rang and rang like a curse. No answer. Dami sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, staring at the last message she had sent. Good night. Safe journey. Delivered. Read. No reply. When Mama asked Kemisola if she knew anything, Kemisola simply said, maybe he wasn't serious. Her voice was flat, too calm for something that had just broken in the house. The second suitor was Yusuf, a businessman from Ibthan. He lasted longer, 3 weeks. He came every Friday, always with gifts. Plantain chips, a new wrapper for Mama, sometimes a small basket of fruits. He spoke of his business like a man who believed he could build a life with his hands. He laughed loudly. He made Baba smile the way Baba smiled only when he felt respected. For 3 weeks, the house felt lighter. Even Kemisola seemed less sharp, though she still asked questions in that cutting, lawyer-like tone. Do you have land? She asked once, as if Yusuf was applying for a visa. Are you renting? What is your 5-year plan? Do you believe in family? Yusuf answered respectfully, but Dami could see the strain in his eyes, like a man trying to pass a test he didn't register for. On the 4th Friday, Yusuf didn't show up. No call. No excuse. Dami waited until 9 p.m., then 10 p.m., then 11 p.m. By midnight, she lay on her bed staring at her phone as if the screen could produce him. Around 1 a.m., she heard Kemisola's voice from the corridor, soft, calm. Yes, Kemisola said into her phone. I warned him. I told him what happens to men who don't listen. Dami froze. Her hand shook so badly she dropped the plate she had been washing earlier. It shattered on the floor, the sound sharp in the quiet house. Kemisola opened her door immediately. Are you mad? Kemisola hissed. Can't you be careful? Dami stared at her sister's face, searching for warmth, for guilt, for anything human. There was nothing. That night, Dami prayed in whispers. God, if this is my portion, give me strength. But if it is not, please fight for me. When she finally slept, her dreams were full of doors closing and footsteps leaving. By the 3rd suitor, the house grew tense. Dami started losing weight. Her laughter became thin, like a song played too softly. Every knock on the gate filled her with hope and fear. Hope, because maybe love was still possible. Fear, because love always disappeared. Neighbors began to whisper. Something is wrong in that house. Maybe the elder one is jealous. God forbid. Don't say that. Then why are all the men running? Even Mama stopped inviting people over for casual visits. She stopped discussing Dami's prospects in church. She stopped singing while cooking. One afternoon, Mama sat Dama down. My daughter, Mama said, voice tired. Have you offended anyone? Dami blinked. Why would you ask that? Mama leaned closer, lowering her voice. Because this thing is not normal. People are talking. They say maybe you are too proud, maybe you refused a man, maybe you. Mama's voice cracked. Maybe it's spiritual, Mama whispered, as if saying the word out loud could make it real. Dami swallowed. She wanted to scream, ask Kemisola. But she didn't. Because in that house, Kemisola was not someone you accused without consequences. Kemisola was respected, feared, and deeply unmarried. And she carried that status like both crown and weapon. Then Ayo arrived. He didn't come like the others. No flashy car. No loud confidence. No performance. He came with patience. He greeted Mama with warmth, greeted Baba with respect, and greeted Kemisola properly, without flattery, without fear. When he spoke to Dami, he spoke like she was not a trophy. He asked her what she liked. He listened. He remembered. And for the first time, Kemisola didn't interrupt. She watched. That scared Dami more than any insult. Because Kemisola's silence wasn't peace. It was calculation. Ayo kept coming. Every Friday. Every Sunday after church. Sometimes he called just to check on Dami's day. Dami started to breathe again. But her body still flinched whenever Kemisola walked past. One night, after Ayo left, Kemisola asked Dami quietly, So you like him? Dami's heart jumped. Yes, she said softly. Kemisola nodded slowly. Okay. That was all. No sarcasm. No sharp comment. No warning. Dami lay awake that night, terrified, because she didn't know what okay meant coming from a woman who had never allowed okay to exist. It happened on a Tuesday night. The house was quiet. Generator off. The fan in Dami's room was barely moving because Nipa had taken light since evening. Dami woke up thirsty. She sat up, blinking, then stepped quietly into the corridor. The tiles were cold under her feet. She was halfway to the kitchen when she heard voices. Low, urgent, like someone pleading. Dami slowed. The voices were coming from the sitting room. She moved closer, heart pounding. And then she saw it. Kemisola was kneeling on the floor. Candles were arranged in a small circle. A calabash sat in the middle. The air smelled like burnt wax and something bitter, like herbs. Dami's throat went dry. Kemisola's shoulders shook as she sobbed. I did everything, Kemisola cried, voice raw. I blocked every path. I carried the shame alone. But now he's still coming. Dami's knees felt weak. Silence followed. Then a voice answered. Not loud. Not dramatic. But wrong. Not human. You swore an oath out of fear, the voice said. Not power. The candles went out all at once. Darkness swallowed the sitting room. Dami stumbled backward, almost falling. She ran to her room, slammed her door quietly, and slid down to the floor. Her whole body shook. She covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. She cried until her eyes hurt. She cried until dawn. She cried like someone grieving a future she hadn't even lived yet. The next day, Kemisola didn't speak. She didn't shout at anyone. She didn't comment on anything. She didn't even correct Mama when Mama mistakenly put salt twice in the soup. It was like something had been drained out of her. Dami watched her all day, waiting for the usual sharpness to return. It didn't. That evening, after Maghrib prayer from the mosque down the street floated through the air, Kemisola knocked on Dami's door. Dami froze. Kimi. Dami whispered. Open, Kemisola said softly. Dami opened the door. Kemisola stood there, eyes red, face tired, hair slightly undone like she had been wrestling herself all day. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kemisola said, Can I come in? Dami stepped aside. Kemisola entered slowly, like someone walking into a confession booth. She looked around the room, then sat on Dami's bed without being invited. That alone was strange. Kemisola didn't sit on people's beds. She didn't enter people's spaces without control. Her hands trembled slightly. I heard you, Dami said before she could stop herself. Kemisola's eyes closed for a second. I know. Dami swallowed. What is happening? Kemisola's mouth tightened. Then she exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. I was afraid, she said quietly. Dami blinked. Kemisola laughed bitterly, but tears rose again. Afraid that once you married, everyone would forget I existed, Kemisola said. Afraid I would be the leftover daughter. Afraid that I would be the one people whisper about at weddings. Dami's chest hurt. I didn't even want to marry before you, Dami whispered. I just... Kemisola cut in, voice breaking. I know. That's the worst part. You didn't fight me. You didn't insult me. You just kept trying to live. She wiped her face angrily, as if tears were an insult. I hurt you, Kemisola said. I nearly destroyed you. And I don't know how to undo what I did, but I'm tired of being this person. Then she slid off the bed and knelt. Kemisola Adeyemi, proud, sharp, feared. Knelt on Dami's floor like a child. Dami stood frozen, tears in her eyes. Kimi, stand up, Dami whispered. Kemisola shook her head. No. Let me do this properly. Silence filled the room. Outside, a neighbor's radio played faintly. Somewhere, a baby cried. Life continued as if nothing monumental was happening in that small bedroom. I'm sorry, Kemisola said, voice cracking. I'm sorry I made love feel like a crime in this house. Dami finally moved. She knelt too, lifted her sister's face gently. I didn't want to take anything from you, Dami whispered. I just wanted to marry it all. Kemisola sobbed openly, the sound ugly and honest. Dami pulled her into a hug. And for the first time in years, the house at Oke-Ayo Road felt like a home again, not a battlefield. They cried together until the call to prayer echoed again, soft and steady like mercy. After that night, the air changed. Not instantly. Not magically. Healing is not lightning. Healing is sunrise, slow, stubborn, quiet. Kemisola started speaking again, but her words were different. Less sharp. Less weaponized. She started eating with the family again. She stopped policing Dami's phone calls. And when Ayo came the next Friday, Kemisola greeted him and didn't pull him aside. Dami watched with suspicion at first, like someone waiting for a trap. But the trap never came. Weeks passed. And then, one Sunday afternoon, Kemisola sat with Mama in the kitchen while Mama peeled yam. "Mommy," Kemisola said softly, "I need help." Mama paused mid-peel. "What kind of help?" Kemisola stared at the floor. I think I need to talk to someone. Like counseling. Or mentorship. I don't know." Mama's eyes widened. In that family, asking for help was not a habit. It was seen as weakness. But Mama's hands trembled slightly, and she whispered, "Thank you, Jesus." Kemisola flinched. "Please don't make it dramatic." Mama laughed through tears. "Let me be dramatic. My daughter is opening her mouth for truth." Kemisola looked away, but there was something softer in her face. 2 months later, Kemisola traveled. She told them it was for work. But Dami knew it wasn't only work. Kemisola changed churches, changed habits, changed herself. She began to dress less like armor and more like comfort. She laughed more, not because she was forcing it, but because she was breathing again. One evening, she returned from a trip with a small smile. "I met someone," she said simply. The house froze. Mama dropped her spoon. Baba looked up from his newspaper like the headline had slapped him. Dami's heart jumped, then she smiled first. "Tell me," Dama said quickly. "Tell me everything." Kemisola rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "His name is Tunde," Kemisola said. "He's not flashy. He's calm. And he doesn't look at me like I'm running out of time." Mama's eyes filled. Baba cleared his throat like a man trying not to cry, and Dami reached for her sister's hand. This time, Kemisola didn't pull away. That year, the house heard wedding songs. The first wedding was quiet. Kemisola married in April. No drama. No rivalry. No tension. Just peace. She wore a simple gown. Her makeup was soft. Her smile was real. Dami watched her sister walk down the aisle and felt her chest tighten with relief. Not envy. Not fear. Relief. Because the curse of delay had been broken, not by force, but by honesty. When Kemisola returned from her honeymoon, she hugged Dami tightly and whispered, "Thank you." Dami blinked. "For what?" "For forgiving me when I didn't deserve it." Dami swallowed tears. "Just be happy, Kemi." Dami's wedding came in August, under a mango tree in their childhood compound. The compound was decorated with white fabrics and small lights. Women cooked in huge pots. Neighbors came carrying coolers, drinks, and laughter. Drums played. Children danced. Aunties shouted instructions. Ayo stood at the front, looking nervous but proud. And Dami looked like a prayer answered. When she stepped outside, Mama's cry rose into the air like a blessing. "My daughter." Mama screamed. "My daughter is becoming a wife." Dami laughed through tears. Then she saw Kemisola. Her sister stood near the mango tree, dressed beautifully, face glowing, not with jealousy, but with joy. As Dami approached, Kemisola reached for her hands and held them tightly. When the drums grew louder and people started ululating, Kemisola leaned closer and whispered. "I thought delaying you would save me," she said, voice trembling. "But freeing you freed me too." Dami's throat tightened. She squeezed her sister's hands. The wind moved through the mango leaves above them like applause. And for the first time in years, the house at Oke-Ayo Road finally heard wedding songs. Not of rivalry, not of fear, but of restoration. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. Afritales 247 will love to hear from you again. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe